A functional society exists because we live in the truth of what our law is supposed to be. Every law is created by an environment of limits and boundaries, and every life is also created by limits and boundaries. Thought is an environment that is created by limits and boundaries. In other words, you can't just believe whatever it is you want to believe. You have to accept the idea that there is evidence to be found, and that evidence will determine what is true. So we have to accept truth decides, not whatever it is you want. And of course, the common human thread is that we want what we want, we don't want what we don't want, and that's all there is to it, and we want to be rich. That's the basis of almost every society on earth, and it rarely changes, for long at least, because, wars bring society back to reality, but then there's always the greed that enters in and changes it back to the way it was. And then of course there's another war, and then people come back to truth a little bit, and then greed interferes and it goes back to the way it was. And history is full of that repeat. So what we have to do is understand that the law itself must be justified, it must be fair play to all, and it must be equal to all. It cannot be for the rich, and it cannot be for the poor, and it cannot be for the university plays God, and it cannot be for leaders that want war, and it cannot be for creating armies that end up as murderers or defenders. It just cannot be the way that humanity has made it be. And of course, that assumes that, people say, oh yes it can. But that assumes that the world has not changed. But the world has changed. Doubling the population in the last 50 years means that we can't go on. We can't go on. The planet cannot survive human interference. Every habitat is being ruined. Every chain of life is being destroyed. Everything on Earth is being poisoned or polluted or in some form or fashion corrupted so that it cannot survive. The worst of the worst of the worst of the worst, of course, are the parasites that claim to be university, is God, but they're just hiding under a blanket of diplomas. A diploma means, we're supposed to be extra special smart. But, the reality is they're extra special stupid. Because they wouldn't accept evolution if they were not stupid. They wouldn't accept that we can bring the same fire here as is on the sun if they're not absolutely insane. They would not accept any 1,000 different things. Genetics or nature is a foundation of all living things. We cannot let them which do what they want to do, which is to fold all the information of every genetic life on Earth into the same thing. They are the greatest threat to diversity that has ever been in the history of life on Earth. They are, the worst of the worst, and that, in the religious terms, I would call them Satan. Because that's what they are, destroyers of what is, so that they can pretend that they will be God instead. And of course that doesn't function or doesn't work, because they are not God. Our bodies are formed by, timing that is a billionth of a second in length. The valves of your heart are very specific. The nature of your organs are very specific. How they hang inside your body is very specific. 600 and some odd muscles have to be grown and woven into a fabric that actually works for you. It takes so-called 200 muscles to create one single step in a human being. Think about that for a minute. And then understand that those who threaten us with our extinction by genetic manipulation and mutilation are your enemies. They are your enemies. There is nothing short of enemy about them. They are your enemies. Just as those who are trying to ignite the nuclear fire here on Earth are your enemies. They're intending to destroy you and intending to destroy the Earth by their arrogance. It's not that they don't understand, they believe. And that is, of course, the worst of the worst of the worst of those who believe. They are, a religious cult that literally tries to destroy life on earth. What it could be more drastic than that. And of course, they've been indoctrinating you since you were born, most likely, with education that says the university is God. And the university knows everything, and the university is the expert, and the university is everything. But the university is just your former classmates. That's all it is. If you take away the blanket covering of a diploma, or the claim of so-called universities is something other than what it is, it's just a group of buildings with some people that came out of your class inside that say they can do something, but rarely do. They but they take your money for their toys. That's what they actually do. They steal your life, as is proven by the corruption and the tragedy of American life today. The reason why Trump has actually got elected. The majority want a change that is not university related. And of course, if you listen to him, he is certainly not university related. He is, just want what I want. That's all I want. I want what I want. And believes that, I can get whatever I want by force. Which is, the return to Nazi Germany. So that's where we stand. That's where we are. That's what is happening. And redress, or the demand that we the people will decide now, is our only course of action, because you cannot destroy or you cannot change something by war. You can only murder people long enough to make them stop murdering you, because they've been mutilated and starved and what have you enough to say, I quit. That's what the end of war is. I quit. I quit murdering, I quit trying to take everything, and I return to the law so that society can return to me. And of course, then they corrupt the law so that a war returns. That's just the facts of life. In America, that's the male domination of society. And of course, I'm male, so I think it's a good thing, except for the fact that it returns and it returns and it returns to the same thing, which means it's not a good thing. Which means that we have to let women try, because our lives have changed. They are in control of population, far more than men are. And, they actually are different in so many ways that hopefully they can be different. That doesn't mean they'll be better, it just means that they're likely to be different. But we have to have different. A functioning society does not believe. It accepts the job that is, we must decide by the evidence what is true. That's what a functioning society is. The reason this America is dying is because it lives on lies. Everything about this society is a lie. Everything about this society is a let the thieves lead us. And of course, if you look at any kind of accounting for this America, this United States, you have nothing but lies and lies and more lies. There is no truth left in this nation, which is why the government doesn't function and cannot function. You cannot function with lies. You have to know what is true. So we return to one of the latest examples of what happens when you take away the thieves from leadership. And the answer to that, of course, was in the primary answer is in Germany after World War I, when the entire economy fell apart and inflation was extreme. And our inflation here is extreme. It's well over 1,000%, because that's just how it is. If you look at the numbers, that's what the reality is. That's what the reality is. And it's not what the media will tell you. It's just what the reality is. And of course, the government leadership keeps it going by controlling the food supply and energy supply and so on, hiding the fact that there are resources being destroyed and the future is dead because of what they do. But we have to accept the idea that we need to know what is true. We need to know what is true. The only way we can know what is true and convince others of what is true is to go to court and identify what is the best we can do for the evidence that we have available in that court, and then judge it for ourselves. It doesn't mean you have to believe the expert. It doesn't mean you don't have to believe the expert. What you do have to do is identify for yourself the foundations of knowledge that let you make a decision that is justified. You have to understand the knowledge, which means that you can't let them be, throwing numbers and math symbols and what have you that you don't understand. You must make them, force them, imprison them as needed to qualify their statements to what is understood by the vast majority, so you can know what to do. You can know what to do. We do not let people play God with our lives until, of course, they take possession of weapons enough to force us to let them play God with our lives. And media, of course, is the primary possession of university, which allows them to force a mass hypnosis over the society. It says, believe, 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 just like COVID. Believe, believe, believe. Fear being wrong. Believe, believe, believe. Obey what you are told. As is, of course, the result of COVID and the Nazis who tried to enforce that. And Nazi just means the people who want power for themselves and couldn't get it otherwise. So now they got a force. Now they have a weapon. Now they're going to make you do what they want you to do. Which is, of course, exactly what Trump is intending to do with forcing immigration. And that'll turn into war, and then, of course, you have secret police, and then we're going to treat them like cattle, and then we're going to find a final solution just like Hitler did. So it isn't a game. It isn't, something that you can't do. You can do it. And as far as Germany in World War I, they're in massive inflation. They had it straightened out in 5 years, because you can't live a life of lies. And so the end result is that every form of money is a promise. If you remove the promise, people will scream and yell and all kinds of things, but you only remove the promise. You didn't remove their lives. You didn't do anything else. You just remove the promises that they were dependent upon for their future. But we have $635 trillion last time I looked of promises, $635 trillion of currency. That's the claim of the U.S. government by the U.S. Treasury. $635 trillion is $6.35 million for each and every one of 100 million people. Or 1/3 of you have $6 million in the bank. Do you have $6 million in the bank? Somebody does. Somebody does. And they intend that you should pay them in your work and resources, whatever it is they want. They have, the last time I looked, is $102 trillion of debt facing the children. And then that's a little over $1 million per each and every one of 100 million children. The people who are supposed to pay the debt, It's not you. And then reverse mortgages and stuff are just, foreign entities that are trying to steal your land and your property and your everything. And then we have leaders that, give away anything and everything to foreigners so that they can, vote for me. And they steal it from others and so on. We have a nation that is flooded with the insurrection of parasites. They are clamped onto us, stealing from us, failing us, and every other form of liar, cheater, thief, tragedy, and terror coming onto this planet, onto this earth, because they believe they can play God. And of course, the only ones that really believe they can play God is university-led, as the masses go. There's always a tyrant. I made a rule, therefore you have to follow the rule, and if you don't follow the rule, then I can just kill you because I made a rule. I'm the ruler. That's not a law. Rules are not laws. Laws apply to all of us equally, and that means the leader is the same as everybody else. And that's what world law must be. The leader is the same as everybody else.